We're glad you're here today. We've been enjoying learning about dealing with stress. Yeah. Then dealing with how to react to stress. Today we want to take it a step further and get into composure. One of the most important factors of being a leader is that if you're going to have followers, what you do, they do. And if you don't grasp that, then the challenge is you can't be upset when they're upset. You can't be bewildered when they're freaking out. This is all about you and I leading people. And that's the power that God has given us. And the call that God has given us is to lead people. You got to learn how to control your mouth. James chapter 3, verse 2. I know it's just facts, but the problem is when you throw the Bible verse in there, it kind of messes it up too. Because that means God puts his finger on it. You got to control your thoughts. Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. You know, every thought and imagination that would raise itself up against God, you got to control. You got to control your attitudes. You got to control your pen, your social media. I actually said somebody today, I said something to somebody today who's just bashing me online. I just simply said, you can't be just a keyboard warrior. You know what I mean? But you got to be careful. Because what you release through your social media posts, it declares your leadership. Another one is you got to control your whole person. And we find this in the book of Galatians chapter 5. The fruit of the Holy Spirit: love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. What's temperance mean? Temperance means control. So composure is a reality if you're going to be a successful leader. Because it doesn't take a lot to destroy someone's confidence in your leadership skill. It doesn't take a lot. And the problem with that is, if you've never been taught, then you only do what you know. So dealing with composure, it's a calmness, especially of the mind, your bearings, and your appearance. So composure, what it actually does is it takes you to a place that no matter what is happening around you, that your outward manifestation might not be releasing your inward sensation. That's important because without that, what ends up occurring is your emotions are on your sleeve. People now can read you, which as a leader is detrimental. You know, a lot of this generation especially doesn't want anybody that's disingenuous. But guarding your emotions is not disingenuous. It means that you're in control of yourself. Because the fact is that if you're going to be a leader, you've got to learn how to control yourself. You've got to be willing to control your eyes. You've got to be willing to, I remember I was dealing with an individual who, no matter what, you could tell what they were thinking because they said it on their face. It took about 3 years to get the face off from their head. You know, they had to learn how to not show themselves. And you ever seen somebody that plays cards? Maybe I know that we're all Christians here, all believers. But the fact is that I always, if I play cards, which is not often because I always lose, but I always look for the other person's tell. Whether it's a good hand or a bad hand, many people have a tell and they don't even know it. I've dealt with other leaders before, especially leaders that have turned a little away from me as an individual, and they didn't realize it, but I knew what they were going to do because they did not have understanding of their own composure, and they gave me their tell, which let me know their next step. So if you can't keep your composure, you're going to find you're going to lose followers. Well, that's big, because if we're pastors, that's big. As a pastor, you don't want to lose your followers, because if you lose your followers, then what happens? Oh, that's right, you're preaching to yourself. And maybe you can convince your wife to show up. So we've got to make sure that we are learning how to compose ourselves, how to control ourselves, how to have, as the scripture says, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. You got to have temperance. Temperance is like this. I've always explained it the best like this. God has called you and I to live a straight line. That no matter what is bad or good, that you are not manifesting it. You can live no matter good and or bad and have temperance or control of your emotions, your mind, your actions, your reactions, so that you can be steady. People need a steady leader. You can be the most dynamic preacher, but if you're not a steady leader, you're preaching to yourself. You can be the most dynamic financial person, but if you're not in control, people are always concerned where their money's going. So no matter what, composure is a massive part of your life. When leading, especially during times of uncertainty and adversity, crisis and change, you must avoid showing any sign of leadership immaturity or lack of preparedness that will make your employees or ministry people feel unsafe and insecure. You are the security of the people. When you're dealing with fear, people will lose confidence in you, because that means as you're manifesting fear, they can't trust that you're going to be able to keep the ship afloat. If you're a person of anger, they stop trusting you. They can't trust somebody that is a smoking gun, always waiting for it to go off again. They can't and will not work with somebody that's untethered in their emotional response, because people will always see you as unstable. You have got to learn, we have got to learn how to become stable in our leadership skill sets, because as God, well, let's just look at Jesus. Jesus remained stable no matter what people said to him, did to him, and even on the cross, he was stable. Because of that, we trust him. He was a great leader, the greatest leader. So for us, we've got to make sure that we are learning composure. It doesn't mean that everything's okay inside, but they don't have to know it on the outside. As a leader, we send signals, whether you like it or not. Your weakness is being bestowed upon your people. Well, why? It's called mojo. What's in comes out, whether you want it to or not. What's in comes out. We send signals. We show actions and reactions. If you're in a panic position and you're showing panic, my goodness, your people are going to be in a panic. What happens when people are in a panic on a boat? Everyone's going to run to one side, and everyone's going to run to that side. Then what happens to the boat? Tips to that side. People are going to start jumping ship because they don't feel stable with the captain. And if the captain's the first one off the boat, aren't you supposed to go down with the ship? If the captain's the first one out of the boat, then we got a serious problem. Because now you got people that aren't supposed to be leading are leading. Now we have catastrophic events in front of us. You got to learn how to control your body language. You've heard me talk about this before. If you don't know your own body language, why you sit the way you sit, why you look the way you look, why you hold the pen the way you hold your pen, Pastor, that's like you're asking us to know every detail of exactly. You've got to know who you are. When I need to talk to somebody, I sit a certain way. When I need to communicate to somebody that I'm in an environment that is very conducive to explosion, you'll hear me drop my tone. You'll see me lean forward for relationship. You learn how to understand your own body language dictionary so that you are composed, that no matter what scenarios coming your way, you're not revealing death, even though death might be imminent. You might not be revealing, oh my God, I'm a little scared here. You don't have to show that. If you're scared, they're scared. So you don't have to show it even though you're feeling it. If you can't have composure in your life, then ultimately you will not keep a lot of followers. Let me tell you who you usually keep. If you're a person that has very little composure, you usually keep, how do I say this nicely, the spiritually simple or people who simply want to just have a job and go home if you're a business. You'll never get people committed. You'll never get people that will actually be able to grab your hand and run strong with you. They're always the people that you're going to have to be petting and taking care of and working with, because they're used to you manifesting your trouble. Therefore, they're used to now manifesting their trouble. Now we all got trouble, and now all we have is a fire in the middle, and everybody's just trying to stay warm and live. But that's not leading. You're not taking anybody there. You're not taking anybody to the destination of the vision if you're always flailing your arms. So you've got to learn how to control yourself. And this is an art, but this is an art not talked about in church. Not talked about in pastoral ministry. Well, we don't talk about it because, let's be real, in Bible college, we learned how to read the Bible. We learned hermeneutics. We can go through soteriology, pneumatology. We learned all of that stuff, but very few were ever taught how to lead people. And like you'll always hear me say, I'll say it continually, and that is this: I believe the greatest leaders on the planet must be the ministry leaders. Why? Because we're leading people either to heaven or to hell. Everybody else is getting the money in their pocket. You know, we're talking, we must be the greatest. We must have the best skills. Because without those skills, we're not going to lead them properly, and we're going to have people jumping ship all the time. So there are certain actions that maintain composure. Don't allow your emotions to get in the way. Be honest with you, most people will never, ever, ever know what I'm feeling. It's very rare that I will show my cards unless I want my cards shown. Now, that means that you cannot live unintentional. That means you must have a methodical mindset to where when something is coming down the pike, you're able to arrest your emotions. You're able to arrest what you're feeling. And in that arrest, it's not that you're not sensing it. It's not that you're not feeling it. It's not that you are being disingenuous, but you are creating that stable environment for the people that you're leading. Seasoned leaders know when to wear their emotions. If you ever in a staff meeting see me get bothered, I got bothered on purpose. I didn't lose control. You know, when we studied Jesus, Jesus didn't go in there and start whipping and flipping tables. Jesus went in the day before, saw that, then went to Lazarus' house, then came back, and then kicked the tables. It was an intentional design. He didn't lose his temper. He didn't lose his emotional control. It was methodical, and it was planned. Another one that's very challenging is we've got to learn how not to take things personally. That is really hard. It's very easy, especially when they start attacking you, to take that personal. I mean, talking like, listen now, I got slaughtered last week on social media, and I got called a lot of things. Got called bad things this morning, actually. And I chuckle at it. Why? I just don't take those things serious anymore. I don't take the personal attacks serious. Now, the harder part is when it actually gets close to home, like a Judas experience, where you've loved somebody and they've been close to you. Remember, a Judas is somebody that is close to you. It's not somebody that's afar off. So you've given them your trust. You've given them a voice. You've given them a platform in your life. And now they exercise you. They slice and dice you. And all of a sudden, we have to learn how not to take that personally. Even though it is directed as personal as it can be, if you take it personally, it will start to erode your confidence from the inside out. I knew this individual. It was an individual doing it to me. And I didn't recognize it at first. But then I started watching their tell, and I started saying, oh, okay, here it comes. And what they were doing is they would look at me and say, you're a great teacher, but you're a bad leader. They would look at me and say, you know something, if you would let me teach you how to be a good leader, then what will happen is we can really make his tabernacle something great. And they would drop these personal attacks. And I didn't identify them at first, and then I started seeing the smile. He would always smile just before his tell was his smirk. The moment he smirked, I knew, bam, here it comes. Get ready. And so I learned that even though he meant those things as personal, that I couldn't take them as personal, because if I took them as personal, then my own self-esteem would be destroyed, because that's what the words were for. We've got to learn that we cannot take things personally. As a leader, remain calm and don't get defensive. When someone came at me very, very strongly, accusing me of embezzlement and accusing me of touching God's money, I knew I hadn't. I mean, I hadn't written, I think I'd signed one check that year. I don't see the money. It's impossible for me to steal the money. But I did not defend myself for 3 months. I did not retort. I did not recant. I did not say anything. I just kept steady for 3 months. Everybody said, aren't you going to say anything? Aren't you going to defend yourself? Nope. Because the moment you start defending yourself, it's he said, she said. So we brought in the accountant, and the accountant made it right, cleared up everything, and I didn't have to say a word. But if I had reacted and taken it personal, then I would have had a manifestation of defense. Whether you like it or not, if you've got to defend it, usually people identify you as owning it. You got to keep your positive mental attitude. Employees are watching your actions and reactions. Your attitude is nasty, immediately you're going to start losing confidence in you. If your attitude is defeat and your demeanor is overall negative, they will lose confidence in your ability to move them forward. Now, again, you'll keep the simple, but you won't keep the people that you need to propel you to the next level. Good leaders, in fact, I think it was George Barna made a declaration that only 5% of leaders stay within churches, good leaders, like high-level leaders. And the reason they don't is because usually the pastor or the leader has a low self-esteem and reacts out of personal reaction, and therefore they won't stay. If you're going to get great leaders around you, you have to be a person that is going to control your attitude, and you've got to keep positive, because even in the midst of traumatic event, if they see you as negative, well, then that's just going to simply filter through the entirety of the group of people that you are responsible for. Number 4, fearless, remain fearless. When leaders project confidence, they instill it in others. I remember when we put the tent up between buildings, we put a tent up that sat 800 people, and it was in August and the first 2 weeks of September. The degrees hit about 100 degrees. And I remember we lost 100 people during those 6 weeks. That's a lot of folks to leave your church. I looked at my staff and they're going, Pastor, what are we going to do? We just lost 100 people. I said, well, we didn't get them here on accident. Therefore, we can replace them, not by accident. We're going to be all right. Therefore, we were able to rebuild, added another 100 people. Some of them came back, some of them didn't. But if I had sat back and go, I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, we're in big trouble. We've lost it all. Well, they're leaving too now. Because if you're gone into a panic, if you're remaining fearful instead of fearless, then they have no confidence in your leadership capability. Therefore, why in the world would they want to stay with you? The next is you got to respond decisively. Now, this plays a different role because each person, each type of leader is a little bit different. For me, I am decisive, but I am slow. Now, what does that mean? I very rarely make a very snap decision. If I'm making a snap decision, it's because it's a mandate. There's no question I have to do this right now. But if I have any opportunity to mull the mindset and the information, it will take me up to a week to make a decision. Now, some people say, well, you're not decisive. No. When I make the decision, it's decisive. The issue is, I want to make sure that I have the correct information to make a decisive decision. And those who are snap deciders many times will make a decision on the information that they've gathered, but it's not the fullness of the information. Now they've made a decisive decision that changes course of the organization, but then they find out it's the wrong decision because they didn't have all the information. So decisiveness does not mean immediate reaction. Decisiveness means that you've got to be able to pull in the information, exercise the information, dissect the information, so that when you make the decision, it is a decision that you're not going to have to retract from. If you're constantly retracting from your decisions, then people are never going to take your decisions as serious. You got to act like you've been there before. Number 6. You got to act like you've been there before. I remember when I used to be a contractor. Yes, I did used to be a contractor. I was a very bad contractor, to be honest with you, because I hated it. But the fact came to a point where one time my dad, during the summer, because I paid my Bible college by working for my father, who owned a company during the summers. My father looked at me and said, you want to make a few $100? I said, yeah. He goes, put a toilet in this person's house. I said, I'd never done a toilet before. He goes, don't tell them, just do it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, fake it till you make it. I said, what? No, I didn't have YouTube back in those days. So here I went in and I figured it out that I pulled the toilet out and I got water everywhere. I don't know if you've ever pulled a toilet, but water was everywhere. Mopped up thank God the homeowner wasn't there. Mopped up all the water and figured out the ring thing because I flipped the old one over and saw how it was put together. Did the ring thing, and then I turned around and put the toilet together, screwed it all together, and wow, it worked. And they said to me, wow, you did a great job. I said, thank you. But I had no idea what I was doing. Now today, I just act like I have no idea what I'm doing. That way, nobody asks me to do anything. And sometimes, in fact, my children, at one point in time, we used to ask them to do the dishes. And after breaking like 5 or 6 plates, we asked them never to do the dishes again. I think they did that on purpose. But great leaders know that one of the most effective ways to maintain composure during difficult times is to act like you've been there before. If you're a great leader and leading an organization, get ready. You're going to come to the thresholds that you have never been to before. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to act, react. You don't know the next step. But if you reveal that to your people, now you've literally created an uneven lifestyle that they are not going to put confidence in. So even though you've never been there before, you've got to act like you've been there before. You've got to act like you know what you're doing. Make many phone calls. In the counsel of many, there is wisdom. So there are times that I don't know what I'm doing, and I will make calls. But with everybody else, I'm just smiling. Are you ready? We're getting ready to go. And if you dared to ask me, what are we going to do next? I would have to say, if I was going to be honest, I don't got a stinking clue. But most people don't ask. Phew, thank the Lord. So we just do it. We just keep going and act like you've been there before, and you'll keep the confidence of your people. You won't create an unstable environment, and therefore, people are going to be willing to follow you where you've never been before. See, that's the key of true leadership. A true leader is taking people where they have never been before, but also where you have never been before. And if you cannot keep your composure, then you will keep very few followers except for the spiritually simple. Now, is there anything wrong with the spiritually simple? No, they love God. They're going to heaven. But you'll never go to your next level with the spiritual simple. You have to gather around you people that have skills that you don't have, that are better at things than you could ever be. That's what great leaders do. But a great leader who's following a mediocre leader will lose confidence quickly, because the mediocre level leader will not keep their composure. Therefore, the high-level leader will look at them and say, I'm getting out of here before the whole thing burns down. So it's imperative that you learn how to practice composure. And it is practice. What do I mean by practice? It means that in every environment, good and or bad, are you in control of your soul man? And if you're not, thank God you have the Holy Spirit, because he can help you. But if you're not aware of it, you're not paying attention to it, then you will just keep acting the same way you've always acted. Problem with that: staying where you are. If you never change you, they'll never follow you to the next place. They must see transition from you, or else they'll never follow you. They'll just hang out, but never put their hand to the plow. Very good. I just want to encourage you today. Here is your homework. I would like you to no matter who you are, you're going to come into a hard situation this week. And when the hard situation is over, I want you to be honest with me, and I want you to tell me where you digressed, where you increased, where composure was lost, and where composure was kept. Evaluating yourself, the Bible says, judge yourself. You got to learn that that is one of the greatest things that you can have as a leader, is judging yourself. Where am I in composure? Where am I out of composure? What do I need to shore up? What do I need to strengthen? And if you can't identify it in yourself, ask your spouse. They'll help you. So thank you very much. I want to encourage you, if you have an opportunity, to go to my new website. It's michaelspencerministries.com. On there will be Rock Solid Faith, which I always encourage every church to install into their ministry. It will get your people solid and get them working. Number 2, it will also have empowering pastors. And that is, we do so many things for building and edifying not only the leader, but also your church and your leadership, as well as with structure within the church to bring you to the next level of what God has for you. So I just want to thank you for watching today. Enjoy your day and be a leader with great composure.